Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Evanya Cartier with me. Evanya is she's mastered the talents of silks performing and acrobatic specialist, and today I'm really excited to highlight her journey of starting at dance and moving her way through it to make it a profession. So thanks so much for being on today.
Yeah, of course, of course. I'm lucky to be here.
Well, to start your journey, dance got introduced to you. So, I think for a lot of kids growing up, at some point they try dance, but not everyone sticks with it. So, talk a little about getting started with dance and what you enjoyed about it just off the get-go.
Yeah, I think it's a very typical option for a lot of females, especially in more traditional cultures, to, just go into dance and see what clicks and see what doesn't. So it definitely didn't click at first. I was like the shortest, but put in the back of the dances always. And I didn't love it, but it's what everyone did. So I kept with it. And then I started competing and I really liked that. I liked the medals, and we quickly learned that gymnastics was more of a place for that. So, yeah, that led me to gymnastics.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of similarities, and yet it is completely different as an athletic event. So talk a little bit about outside of the competition, the learning hurdles of getting introduced to gymnastics for you.
Yeah, so I remember a dance teacher actually saying, you will succeed more and you will get opportunities such as like solos. And I don't know, imagine, an 8-year-old hearing this. Uh, Broadway, you need to be a triple threat. You need to have more than just dance. And so I was
Yeah.
thinking, okay, I don't know what she's talking about. That's a lot of pressure. And so my one goal was I need to learn how to do a backflip.
Hmm.
And so we went into gymnastics, thinking I'm going to learn how to do a backflip. My dad did circus just as like a hobby, and he was like a Mr. Flipper, but I never thought that I was going to be exactly like him. Of course, that would have been awesome, right? But yeah, that was the first goal, and it happened really quickly. So I just kept making more.
That's amazing. Now, in the world of gymnastics, and self-admittedly, I never competed, so I don't know much about it other than what I've been exposed to. That becomes a pretty intense, or it can become a pretty intense sport pretty quickly. So, what was that like for you? Was it more of a seasonal competitive, or did it become part of like all of life?
Yeah, so I would say gymnastics is pretty seasonal in the competition
Mhm.
aspect of it. However, the aspect of training all year long is pretty prevalent with all of the levels.
Yeah.
I will say once I learned that, first goal of the backflip, it went from 3 hours a week to 9 hours a week to 12 to 15 to 20 to 30. So, being a 15-year-old doing 30 hours a week, I didn't realize that, some college, adults don't even work that much. So,
Yeah.
at the age of 15, I definitely felt like it was a lot in terms of scheduling. I didn't know how to balance a social life. And yeah, it got tough.
Now, what about it and kind of your passion for it allowed you to not get burnt out or to not get burnt out for long periods of time? Maybe you did take off, a week here or a weekend and just recharge the batteries. But what is it about it that, really, captivated you and made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, I think sometimes um, when humans get a limited amount of choices, they excel really well.
Yeah.
So I'll go into that a little bit more. It was just a thing that I had the option to do.
Yeah.
So I moved in with my gymnastics coach because um, driving back and forth to the gymnastics training center, and my parents still had jobs and they still had their social lives. It just became a lot. And so I ended up moving in with my gymnastics coach at 13, I would say. And the that was just the thing that I did.
Yeah.
I went to online school, I did gymnastics, I came home, ate dinner, went to bed. Like that, no choices in the matter, but I think I was okay with it. I don't remember ever being uh, envious of the soccer players, or
Mhm.
it was just kind of in my blood at that point.
Yeah. Now, at some point, you either got invited or you went to a show of some acrobatics. So, talk a little bit about the show, what you saw, and that moment for you.
Yeah, so when I was living with my coach, things got complicated in terms of her workload and they were switching locations. And so I ended up moving back with my dad. And like I said, he was a part of his dad's circus just for like a hobby. They loved jumping on the trampoline together. And he took me to my last gymnastics meet in Vegas and I bombed it. I did not do good at all. I was emotional, emotional teenager. And I remember going on vault and telling my coach, I'm not vaulting, I'm not doing it. And so I walked up to the vault, I touched it, and it's called a scratch where you fail basically.
Yeah.
And then I didn't end up finishing the meet. I walked under thing that keeps the audience members out. And I was like, Dad, let's go. Take me anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
he said, okay, I've got a place. And he took me to a Cirque du Soleil show that same day. I remember it was Mystère, which is still currently in Vegas.
Yeah.
I looked up at the trapeze scene where they're in bungee cords, but they're, flipping. I think it's like six of them all up in the ring, probably what, 45 feet up. And
Yeah.
I looked over at my dad and I was like, this is the next thing. This is the next thing that I'm gonna do.
I love it. So, kind of tying back to what you had mentioned about your dad and now his dad, there was an element of support for probably things that were maybe non-traditional. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I would say not a whole lot of pressure to uh, be forced into anything. There was definitely an expectation of if you choose to do something, you're going to excel at it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a, well, do whatever you want, honey,
Yeah.
but it was a support of like, I support you learning hard work. I support you choosing different, unique things, but you need to learn how to be a good human in those things and uh, be ambitious. So,
Yeah. I love that. Now, for you, being as young as you were, there's probably not a lot of job opportunities if you decide, hey, I want to go, learn how to do this and then enter in the work world. So it piques an interest, but it's not, all right, now I'm doing that. So talk a little about learning it, but then moving back to the gymnastics side in the college years.
yeah, so gymnastics, every gymnast will go through a breaking point where it's can I make it to college
Mm,
or am I shooting for the Olympics
yeah.
when you get to the higher levels? And if you can't make it to college, a lot of people go, well, am I just doing this for fun, 30 hours a week?
Right.
When, you know, as much as a car payment or
Yeah.
more. And I realized I don't have a plan for college. And I know my parents' rule was we will pay for your college if you go to an Ivy League. Okay, my ACT scores weren't that good. My grades were like decent, but not Ivy League good. So I needed to figure out a way to pay for college. And that's where I met a couple people through college athletics, cheer, and they were like, "You're good at handstands. Let's come get thrown." So at 17, I went to a college practice and I was like, this is so much fun, so much adrenaline.
Yeah.
The boys are kind of cute. Of course, I was 17, so, I had to wait a little bit, but I would say that's when I fell in love with that option
Hmm.
was when I went to that first college practice. And yeah, I got a college scholarship within 6 months of that. So, yeah.
Now, with the kind of talking through the team dynamic and what you end up doing, right? There's certainly still an individual aspect of it, but now you're more entering into partner, and team element. And I think, that world of gymnastics is so interesting where if you're really good, your team could suck and you can still be really good. And at the same token, if you're pretty good, but your team's really good, you can still be really good because the team's amazing, right? So talk a little bit about going from almost like an individual side of things to now entering into more of a team partnership type of
Yeah.
competition.
Yeah, I'm glad you said something about that because that transition was definitely hard to feel support from my team and also support them in the same way back. The
Yeah.
first team I actually went on, I did not connect, I did not resonate with the team aspect. And you could definitely tell that my success uh, dwindled because of
Mm.
it. And so I found a team the next year at Weber State University that I resonated so much more with, and I still talk to a lot of them to this day. And it helped because they were a little bit more advanced in the stunts that they did, but they didn't do as many dances. So, like I
Mm.
said, I wasn't good at dance. We already knew that, but I loved doing the handstands and the stunts and the adrenaline. So, it was a perfect fit for me, and I really enjoyed it.
So how did you get connected to Weber State? What were there coaches that connect you? Did you know, other athletes on the team? How'd you get connected there?
Yeah, so all of this, my childhood, everything happened in Utah, and
Yeah.
Weber State is in Utah as well. And they were garnering a reputation as a cheer school. So
Mm.
people would go for the cheer team, not necessarily to do school, but I was trying to do both. So I remember at my first school, people were driving, making the drive. I think it was like an hour and a half drive, one leg. And we were going, after our classes, and we would go up there and meet with a group of people, probably 2 or 3 times a week, and just train and stunt and it was like almost like a social hour, but we were doing stuff and we were laughing and videoing and creating content. And this is kind of before the blow up of TikTok and everything. But I look back at some of those videos that we would, try and make and try to copy the challenge. And it was just a really good time as, a emerging adult to be
Yeah.
around so much talent and so much hard work and people who were honestly insane in the head with the things they were trying. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was a good, like, um, normal, like, I just thought that was normal at that point because I was
Yeah.
surrounded by it. And so that's how I got connected to Weber State. And I ended up missing the tryouts because I was in Hawaii for something else. And so I ended up calling the coach and being like, I want on your team. How do I get on your team? And she invited me to a private audition and basically said I had the spot um, within the day. So that was awesome.
That's great. Now, as you're kind of looking at, environments where people are excelling and there's a almost a new level of standard, right? Because everyone's really good or everyone's dedicated to it. I think for a lot of people that can be intimidating, whether that's, in an athletic endeavor, that's going to a new job where, the company's doing really well. For you, how did you embrace, cultivating relationships all the while seeing like the standard is, going higher and now I need to be doing more?
Yeah. So if you mean being surrounded by people of the same mindset,
Yeah.
this talent development, drive, passion, whatnot, um, I think sometimes if you have that environment with people who aren't also ambitious about creating a positive environment, it can be very cutthroat. It can be
Hmm.
very, uh, hi, what's your name? What are you gonna do for me?
Yeah.
And it's it's a little bit LA culture. It's a little bit, Nashville culture. Now that I'm here, I'm recognizing it now. But I would say I was very lucky. The people that I was with, I didn't experience that with. I think a lot had to do with no one was like big on social media. I think social
Yeah.
media has a huge part to play in that cutthroat. What are you going to do for me? How are we going to collaborate? How are you going to benefit me?
Yeah.
That kind of transactional vibe wasn't there at Weber State yet, at least while I was there. So relationships were good. They were really positive, and I learned so much from being there.
Love it. Now, in addition, while you were there, there was some success. So talk about, your success, team success while in your years there.
Yeah, so we were, I think, I don't know that how many in a row, but they had won this NCAA championship, which
Yeah.
happens in Daytona every year. And um, there's always like a push to be on that team, even though you're on the team, right? There was always a push to be the one who won the medal for the team, right? And
Yeah.
there was only a certain amount of spots. And I will say, when I was on the team, COVID happened, right? And so we did like a preliminary at the USA Nationals and we won flying colors. It was easy, right? But then during that push to be on the Florida thing, March 2020 happened and everything blew up. And I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
like, how can I cheer without people in the stands? Or how can I? It was a very scary time for sure, and it put a lot of my uh, dreams at risk because I didn't, everyone didn't know where the world was.
Right.
So it definitely cut cheer short, but it changed my uh, route a little bit
Yeah.
towards.
Well, so parlay with that and talk a little about the route change and what you end up going into on, kind of coaching and training side.
Yeah. So, like you said a little bit ago, when I was a minor, I didn't realize that I can charge for performance. I can have a set rate, right? Every time I perform silks. And during all of this college cheer business, I was doing that kind of more as a hobby. Not knowing that I could just train that and get really good and have a career option. In Utah, it's not really a full-time option, to be honest. So you have to go to Vegas or, Montreal or Miami or other places. So I remember training 2020 on my own, and I had one student, and she loved me, and her dad loved me. And I loved going to her CrossFit gym and teaching her. And, I started thinking, I really like this.
Yeah.
I wonder how I could do this. And I was thinking I would need my own gym. I would need money to do that. And it just seemed too big
Yeah.
to handle. So I got this random call, and I got it from the first circus director that ever uh, met me. And she said, would you like to help open my next studio, a sister studio? And this was during the pandemic, 2020. I was like, you're crazy. You're crazy for opening a studio during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It got pushed a little bit and then a little bit again, but we ended up opening fall of 2020. Of course, Utah's COVID rules were a lot different than the rest of the nation. So, with that being said, it was able to happen. And from then, I went from one student to like 30 or 40 students, and I was like, yes, see, this is what I want. And as cheer kind of de decreased, circus kind of increased. The desire to teach other people what I've learned
Yeah.
increased. Still not performing a whole ton. Didn't know that was really an option. But yeah, that was that was a turning point for sure.
Yeah. So I think from a, transitioning from, you know, being coached to coaching, not that you ever stop learning or being coached, but, it's just a different dynamic. Some people really get joy out of seeing others succeed. Others, they get joy out of seeing how far they can push themselves, right? And there's less fulfillment from, the other element. Talk about with you. I know you said, hey, especially with the first girl you were coaching, like I really got a lot of joy, seeing her, get better and succeed. So talk about that as a coach, just that fulfillment piece of pouring energy and time into someone, and then seeing them reap the rewards of the effort.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing, honestly, when someone is inspired by you, maybe through talent, maybe through, oh, I saw you put in all this work and it paid off. So can you teach me how to do that? And I definitely saw her improve so much so quickly. And I had the expectation that I could do that with every student. Unfortunately, she was the best first student that I probably could have had. Gave me a lot of motivation. I think there are a lot of people who don't see what it takes
Mm, yeah.
to really get to the result that they want. And so once they do see what it takes, they're like, oh, I don't want that anymore, right?
Right.
But it's your job as a coach to show them, no, this is what it's going to take from where you're coming and to where you're going. And yeah, I think it's something that I'll always enjoy. I first taught gymnastics and I loved that. It's a lot more of a turnover. People
Yeah.
quit gymnastics all the time and come back, um, sometimes seasonally, and so that was discouraging. But I feel like Silk students kind of keep with it,
Yeah.
although maybe not 20 hours a week. They maybe do like 1 or 2 hours a week,
Yeah.
maybe three if they're intense about it. But the retention is a little bit more.
Now, people that are coming to you, as students, is this in an an effort to just learn something new? Is it something where, hey, it's helping them develop for an additional, like maybe they're wanting to perform, as a profession, so they're coming to you, or what type of folks are looking at this as an activity to grow and become better at?
Yeah, so at a couple years after the pandemic, I ended up moving across the country to Kansas City, and I found a job as a fabric program director. So, fabric being silks and the hammock, and teaching. Now I'm from 40 students to 100 students, right? So, I'm just growing this. And what I saw was there are those gymnasts, right? My background, that don't want to do gymnastics anymore,
Yep.
but don't want to lose everything they've worked towards, right? The
Yeah.
flexibility, the strength, all of that. But there are those circus kids, and I giggle because they're a little funky. They're a little weird. Nothing's really clicked. They've tried, you know, trumpet, they've tried underwater basket weaving, they've tried everything, and their parents are tired. Their parents
Yeah.
are so, so tired, and they just want something to click. I think circus has so many branches to it
Hmm.
that when they step into the aerial studio and they see something inspiring and they see something challenging, but if they tell their friends at school, oh, this is what I do once a week, they get sort of like a confidence from that.
Yeah.
And to see these like kind of weird kids, insecure kids come into the studio and then leave with a boost of confidence, of
Mm,
increased strength,
yeah.
mobility, whatnot, and a sense of purpose and self. Uh, that was really cool to see, especially with, these not just 8 or 9 year olds, right? But these like 17, 18, 19 year olds,
Yeah.
or even 32 year olds. I was teaching well into people's like 50s.
Wow.
So yeah, circus is really for all ages, and it's really fun and inclusive, I would say. And I got to explore that.
Now, I think you hit on something, and it's something I share frequently with people that I think oftentimes we view confidence as this thing that, like, if I were just good at this, or if I just look this way, then I would be confident. And what I have found is that my confidence is typically when I have kept promises that I made to myself.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter if I look this one way or if I feel this one way. It's just all about the, promises that I made to myself. And when I do that, then I feel confident. So, when you have a student that comes in and you say, hey, I need you to practice 2 hours a week or whatever it is, and they do that and then they see the results of it, I can imagine that that does boost their confidence.
Yeah, I think I liked how you put that. I've never heard of it that way. I think completely right. How can you have trust in yourself that you can make your own decisions, that you can think for yourself if you don't keep certain promises and have some form of intrinsic discipline, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that definitely builds the confidence of these kids, teenagers, adults, whatnot. Yeah.
I love it. So for you, Kansas City has lived, and then we're on to the next. So talk a little bit about the reason for the next move and what we're doing now.
Yeah, so now I actually quit my marketing job. I ended up quit coaching aerial. I live in Nashville now, and the way that kind of worked out was I was feeling like I outgrew Kansas City in terms of I was performing the most I had ever performed, and the money it was like it wasn't enough performance hours to completely quit everything. And that's something that I grew to want. And I recognized the more effort I put into performing, the more my coaching suffered, and
Mm.
vice versa. If I put
Yeah.
more effort and emotional time into coaching, my performance suffered. And I wrote that down March of 2024, and I was like, something's got to change. I've got to pivot. So I made the decision to move to Vegas for a month and just see how many classes I could take, how many people I could meet, right?
Yeah.
Network. They People can't hire you if they don't know who you are.
Yep.
And summer came. I told the studio, hey, I'm stepping back. I'm going to pursue myself personally in this way. And they were like, okay, good luck. You know, we love you. All my students were so sad, tears, whatnot. But I felt really good about it. I went to Vegas. I met so many people, and they all told me that I would go far if I did a few things and just changed a little bit of my training and went where the money is, which happened to be in one apparatus called flying pole, right? So originally I wanted to do, the aerial silks, and turns out that it's so saturated. So many aerialists do it. I do a lot of other things, but nothing really was getting hired repeatedly.
Hmm.
And there was this one girl who said, everyone wants to hire a generalist, so someone who can do everything, a master of all trades, right?
Yeah.
But you're looking for someone who's going to hire a specialist, so you need to become a specialist. And so I trained really hard and got called for an audition fall of 2024, and they ended up moving me out to this residency that I have now that's in Nashville. It's called Shiners, and it's at the Woolworth Theater here. It's been around 3 years in the making, and it's such a cool cast. It's the same show every single time. The audience definitely like makes the show feel different from time to time, but it is enough to, quit everything else that I was doing and move to a new place and establish myself as more of a full-time performer.
Now, as you go, whether it's in your types of shows or it's a Broadway musical, I think the item for people that aren't in that world, you go, man, you're doing this 4 days a week, or however many days a week that a person's performing. Then on top of that, you're practicing that. Like, what is the intensity of training and practice, and then doing the performance? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think it depends on if you are a full-time performer
Yeah.
like I was, last year, but these performances, what are they? They're, a restaurant gig here where you're doing one routine. Okay, you got to train for that. And then say there's a convention, you have another routine on another apparatus, you got to train for that. So if it's switching so many times and the location is switching, the costumes are switching, that's a lot of mental power and physical power you're doing to just do these single one-off gigs, right?
Yeah.
But if it's a show that is a constant show, you do the same thing every time, as long as you keep super flexible, super strong, super healthy, then your training can actually decrease to being more efficient and, saving your body almost. You go into a mode of sustaining instead of training for everything, right?
Yeah.
It's more efficient that way, and the longevity of circus becomes a lot more when you have opportunities like that.
Love it. Well, I want to say thank you for sharing your journey and just all the amazing things that you've done and will continue to do. And as you progress, we'll have to do this again in 3 years and see where you're performing then and
Right?
what the shows look like then.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Phil.